Well, hey, church, welcome to this week's episode of Afterthought. I'm Sam.
I'm Greg.
We're going to be talking about Greg's sermon from Sunday out of Matthew. Yes, we are still in Matthew. Chapter 25, verses 14 through 29, and it's about the parable of the talents.
Yes.
So in the parable, a master, he has three servants, and he gives them each varying levels of talents. Now, talent is not indicative of, like, you can play guitar, cook, sing, and it's not like talents. It's like a financial term.
Right.
But he gives, one 5, he gives 1 2, and then he gives 1 1. The 5 doubles it. The one who has 2 doubles it. The one who has 1, because he's afraid that the master is a harsh person, digs a hole and buries it into the ground. And then the master comes back, and he rewards the 2 servants who multiplied what he gave them, and to the one that buried it, he takes that talent away, gives it to the others, and casts the other one out into outer darkness.
Yeah, weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yes, very uplifting and encouraging.
Yeah.
So as we walk through this passage, you mentioned this a lot, and it's been the context of the text for the last few weeks. Standing large over this parable, casting a shadow over it, is the fact that Jesus is coming back.
Right.
So it's to be understood with a sense of, like, urgency.
I think we can get in this. Of course, he told the parable because he wanted to get the whole talent part out there. But basically what he's saying is, I'm coming back. What are you doing with what I've given you? And so it goes back to living with the sense of urgency, but the whole idea is making the most of the moment. Don't waste your life. Don't waste what I've given you. And so I talked about 3 areas: time, talent, treasures. And treasures would be money.
Yeah.
Right? How are you stewarding your money? How are you stewarding your time? How are you stewarding the gifts that God's given you? And so that's really the whole idea. And it's under the banner of, because Jesus is coming back and we don't know when.
Yeah.
So we
and
have
you
to
will have
live.
to give an account.
Right. And that is, the account comes when he returns, and he ends up throwing the dude in outer darkness, which I found really interesting, that on the surface, if I loaned you, my lawnmower, and I wouldn't expect you to come back with 2 lawnmowers.
No.
Right? So I've given you my lawnmower to steward. If you bring it back, we're good.
Yeah. Break even.
Yeah. And so there was an element to this where I'm thinking, the guy buried it in the ground, and he brings him back what he gave him. So why was that a bad thing?
Maybe he didn't clean it off.
That could be it. But the implication was the reason that he didn't. He said, I knew you were a hard man who scattered seed where it wasn't sown. And so it was the idea of a false view of the master. He saw him in an unhealthy way, in a distorted way. And so it informed his activity, and I said on Sunday that your theology shows up in your activity.
Yeah.
So talk is cheap. We can say that we love God, trust God completely, but your bank account, that your theology shows up in your bank account, right? So if you're not a giver, if you aren't generous with your finances, which, by the way, everybody's generous. They're just mostly generous to themselves, right? And I say themselves, ourselves.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we have to look for, where's your theology showing up? Well, it's showing up in the product of your life.
I saw, when I'm reading this passage, and it's reminding me, and you talked about it too, Ephesians 2:10. We talk about it almost every week, that you've been given, you have this you-ness that has been set aside eons ago, that God has laid out works for you to do in your life. And I look at these first 2 servants that did a good job, and they took what God gave them and they multiplied it. And you say this pretty frequently, but if your story ends with you, it's not a compelling story.
Right.
So what I see in the first 2 servants is their story didn't end with them. They were able to take what God gave them and allow that to ripple effect obviously
Right.
I'm playing a little fast and loose with the parable here, but
Right.
like oftentimes what God gives us, we want to either hoard or use it to build a platform for ourselves, have it everything point back to us.
Well, what's really interesting is that there was no implication in the passage that the master was going to let them keep any of it. He just said steward it. But then we find out when he takes the one bag of gold and gives it to the guy with 10, that, wait, he gets to keep that. So that is the generosity and the grace of the master. That there was no promise when he says he's leaving. He just says he gave them, entrusted his wealth to them. So he entrusted it. He didn't give it to them. He entrusted it to them, meaning I'm giving this to you on loan, which that's where the idea that every good thing in our life comes from God.
Yeah, I look at this and the word servants is sticking out to me a lot. Servants don't own anything.
Right.
Everything they have is on loan. The master can come and take whatever they want
At any time.
at any time. And I think for us, we live under this kind of false idea that like we actually own the things that we have. Even if you legally do or the bank says you do, but we act like we just own everything in our life. We act like we own our time, we own our energy, we own our resources, we own all of this stuff. So really, I was thinking about this last night, like the call of the gospel is not to give your life to Jesus, it's to give your life back to Jesus. Because he owns it. Like the breath in your lungs, whether you follow him or not, is currently his. And
Right.
you're being upheld, like what Colossians says in Colossians 1, like you're being upheld by the word of his power right now. So like give it back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's really good. That we're called back to God through Jesus, not called to him for the first time.
No. Yeah.
Because he created us. He created us with purpose. And a compatible verse to Ephesians 2:10 is 1 Peter 4:10, that as each of you has been given a gift, use it to serve others as good stewards of God's grace. And so you think about that, as each has been given a gift. The assumption is that you've been given a gift, and you've been given it for the purpose of serving others, for the sake of the kingdom.
Yeah.
You know, and so that kind of gives you a picture of, hey, your gift is not your own. It was never meant for you, and it shouldn't end with you.
Yeah.
And so, let me give a plug real quickly
Yeah.
for giving.
Yeah.
We rarely talk about it at Restoration. I had somebody yesterday, and maybe you'll watch this and you'll know that I'm talking about you, that asked me, hey, so because I was talking to him about business, and I said, giving has been a little down this year. And he goes, yeah, I was just thinking about that when I'm at church. I look around and I'm like, man, who pays for all this? Like, are y'all like funded by some kind of public offering or what? I said,
Do you not know how churches work?
well, no. And I said, it's funded by you.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, I said, yeah, we're crowdfunded, which means that we're for us, by us, that we survive on the giving of the community of believers that attend Restoration. And so I just wanted to remind everyone that, again, I rarely talk about this, but it's the realization that, number one, your money isn't yours. It's not mine either. It's God's. And if God has placed you in this faith community, and if he has impacted your life by this, you're not giving to Restoration.
Yeah.
You're giving back to God
Yeah.
a portion of what's his. And, I have a lot of people that will say, well, I don't give all of my tithe to Restoration. And I'm like, that's awesome. Give wherever you want, but give. And I hope that a portion of it is here, but it's not where you give, it's that you give, and it's that you give generously.
Well, Paul talks about this in the New Testament. I think it's in 1 Corinthians, where he's like, hey, we're asking for money, but you guys benefit from what we're doing. Like, have you also not received like wealth in spiritual wisdom and the knowledge of God and all that kind of stuff? Like, is it too much to ask that you help fund our missionary journey?
Right.
And I think about our church, it's like, man, we're like hundreds of people are going through Regen. Hundreds of marriages have gone through Reengage. Like, there's so many things happening, so much extraordinary God activity all the time. And that stuff doesn't happen magically.
Right.
You know,
right.
that all takes funding and planning and logistics and all that kind of stuff. And so I think sometimes especially in America, I think people can get cynical about giving in churches because they think, oh, you see the one-off story of the pastor with the private jet or the Rolls Royce or whatever.
Right.
And it's like,
I want to just go public. I do not have a private jet.
yeah. Thank you for saying
Yeah.
that. I think there was some confusion.
If someone is listening that does have a private jet, I'm open.
Yeah, we can be friends.
Oh, yeah.
But like, so people can get turned off when the church talks about money, but it's like, man, look at everything Restoration's doing. One thing I love about our church is that we're not giving to faceless, like, international kind of things. It's like we're pouring all of our resources into like local things.
You can see what your money is touching on any given week.
Yeah.
And you can see it both inside the walls and outside the walls, and I love, so this year so far, Taylor's right off of the camera here, but is it 167 people that have been baptized this year? Is that right? Yeah. So,
Which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, we're now somewhere between 800 and 1,000 baptisms over the last 10 years since we started, which every baptism represents a person who has said yes to Jesus. And man, I don't know, that is, and the thing that I love, not just about those numbers, but about who it represents, because we have an inordinate amount of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We baptized an 82-year-old man a few months ago.
I wept in the back of the sanctuary. That's what was happening.
It's like, it's not normal.
It's not.
And so, again, this is not a plea for money, but it's an issue of discipleship. Because if you are not giving, if you are not practicing biblical generosity, which again, I said it on Sunday.
10% in everything.
Yeah. I mean, 10% is an Old Testament concept. Jesus told the rich young ruler, give everything you have, sell it all, give it to the poor, follow me. So it's somewhere between 10% and everything. And so I don't think God is saying, hey, you got to take a vow of poverty, but he is saying, hey, listen, I want you to give to me off the top to show dependence. Don't give me the leftovers. Don't tip me if there's anything left over. It's like, hey, trust me.
Yeah.
It's the only place in Scripture that he says, test me.
Yeah.
See if I don't fill your barns to overflowing. He's like, hey, I'm just asking for a portion back to show that you're dependent.
Yeah.
And so this falls under this heading, and so we can take that and go, okay, so that is financial, but then there's another piece of the pie, and it's your giftedness. It's like, what has God gifted you to do, and how are you stewarding it for kingdom purposes? Are you building your kingdom versus the kingdom? And I mean, we've talked about this before. As a songwriter / entertainer, that's always a challenge. Well, I mean,
entertainer, that's fun.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you just think about, I mean, you don't write all worship songs, right?
Correct.
So you're writing songs to be consumed by the general public, and they are about faith, but they're also, I mean, you're hoping to get paid off of those. Right.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, I mean, so you're looking for that mailbox money.
Yeah.
But you run that, you're in that tension of building your own platform while building a kingdom platform, and where those lines get blurred, it can get blurred sometimes.
It's very tricky because, like, I've even had, so I recorded a live worship album here at the church a few years ago. It was my stuff, brought in a whole band, all
Right.
that stuff. And I've had multiple people from the church be like, oh, we should play that song on Sunday morning. And I'm like, maybe, but I feel weird about that. Even though it's corporate worship songs,
Right.
I feel weird about that because it feels like a conflict of interest to go, if I go to multi-tracks and buy this song like we do other songs, but it's my song. I know I'm getting paid from that purchase that the church is making.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't like that. Like I hardly ever play songs that I wrote myself outside of
Our worship team.
Our worship
Yeah.
team, because it just feels weird. And a lot of people don't feel that way about it.
Well, and I would,
but I feel weird about it.
but I would look on the other side of it and say, hey, at the end of the day, you're stewarding your gift. God placed that song in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
He set you up with that co-write. All of those things. He put the musicians in your life to be here that night to record that live project. Yes, you should do those songs on Sunday morning. And you know, if you benefit from that financially, that quarter of a penny.
Mean, it wouldn't be a lot.
Yeah,
but.
I mean, I'm like, hey, the world needs to hear the songs because it will further the kingdom. I think whether it furthers your kingdom versus the kingdom of God is all a heart issue. Mm-hmm. It comes down to what's going on in your heart.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with whether, you know, because there's a really good chance that, you know, death of death. What a cool idea for a song.
Yeah.
You know, explain that song real quickly because it's the death of death.
So for those of you who are familiar with our story at all, our firstborn daughter was stillborn, and a few years later, I was sitting on our bed feeding our youngest son Silas with a bottle, and just kind of thinking about, man, I wish I could have had this experience with our daughter. And as that was happening, this line came across my mind that said, "The love of God is the death of death," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So then I thought, there's this early church father named Gregory of Nyssa, and he had this thing called the fishhook theory, which was about how God. This is a real tangent, but so in 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about the Lord's Supper, and he says if you consume the body and blood without like repentance or whatever, then judgment will be upon you. So Gregory of Nyssa says that Jesus allowed his body and blood to be consumed by death in dying. But because death didn't like account for what it was consuming, the judgment then fell upon death. So Jesus tricked death into consuming himself so that death would in turn be defeated.
That's got Matrix like.
Yeah, it's like, so it's his theory is like Jesus put himself on the fish hook and cast himself out so that he would bait death into destroying itself. And so I was just thinking about like death is this tyrant that has been destroyed by Jesus. The funny connection to this passage that we're reading today is there's in verse 19 it talks about the master comes back to settle accounts, and in the bridge of the song it said something like he's been trampled by the Lamb who settles every score. But yeah, that's the story behind the song. I think it's a great song. We sang it at a funeral in New York earlier this year, which was the first time I'd ever really played the song publicly other than it being recorded, which felt very fitting because that setting was why I wrote the song to begin with.
Right. Right.
And so
okay, so let me the reason that I wanted you to share that is because that is part of your talent. Mm-hmm. That's a gift that God's given you. And I'm sure that people listening to that right now, I hope you go to Spotify or whatever platform you stream music, go listen to the song and listen to the lyrics because they're incredible lyrics. The imagery there is so strong and the world needs to hear that. So it's bigger than, and so there's almost
turning into like a therapy session.
Well, no, well, I mean, yeah, but pride shows up in two different ways.
Yeah,
it shows up in arrogance and it shows up in deprecation. That was what I was looking for. Yeah, so it shows up in two ways, and so in both of those, God doesn't get the glory, and so God gets the glory when the song gets out. However it gets out. And, you know, I've been writing you for years now about the fact that we've written all these songs as a church and the world doesn't know about them, right? And I'm not saying that Restoration should be an international platform, but there's some great songs that have been written by us primarily for our church, but I think there's a bigger audience.
Sure.
And it comes back to this.
Just so everyone knows, I showed PTL to Brandon Lake, and he was like, "This song's a banger." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "I know.
Well, and
I'm aware."
And we had a church in Nashville record Testimony.
Yeah, they just
last
released
month.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like ours better, but I'm biased.
Yeah.
But all of that to say, to not promote the music that we invested in to record is the one guy bearing his talent.
Yeah.
Just going, well, I was afraid that it would too much reflect on me, and so I'm burying it in the ground. And when Jesus returns, I'll pull it out and say, "Hey, thank you for this." So, so that's a challenge to you, to not be afraid, but just it's always a heart check. I think in every area when we're thinking about using our gifts, I have to check my heart every Sunday when I walk on stage. You know, is it even possible to be motive free?
No.
Is it possible for me to not want people to like me, not want people to affirm a message? Absolutely not. It's not possible. But as much as I can, I'm giving the gift that God has placed in me, the gift of public speaking, communication, whatever. I'm giving that to God for the Holy Spirit to breathe on it and then for it to go out. And I hope it does,
Yeah.
you know? And so then the other area would be our time. And the question is, how much are you making the most of your time? You know, what is your time management like? And I would say,
check your screen time app at the end of the week and let me know.
yeah, of the three, I would say that this is probably the area where I can be the worst. You know, that I'm doing really good things. They may not be God things, you know, and having to really check with God on, hey, are you calling me to this? Or am I doing it out of either a sense of obligation, a favor, or is it really you? Are you calling me into this moment? So those are three ways that we need to manage or steward the talents that have been given to us.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Love
yeah.
that.
And pause.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, landing the plane, I mean, there's so much richness in this passage, but I would say if I could only say one or two things, it would be, hey, everyone's got a gift, and a spiritual gift, but also you've been gifted, whether it be monetarily or a skill that you have, or just you've got a lot of discretionary time. And all of those things work together to form your talent in this passage. Jesus is returning. What are you going to do about it? You know, talk is cheap. Your theology on what you believe about this is actually going to show up in what you do. And so how you give of both your, or all three, time, talent, treasures, tells a story about what you really believe about God.
Yeah. Well, church, I hope this has been convicting for you. I know it's definitely been convicting for me.
We'll talk a little more offline.
But I hope you can leave this podcast and reflect on, one, like, maybe ask the Lord, what is my talent? You know, how much time do I actually have during the day or during the week? What are resources? What am I spending money on that I don't need to be spending money on, that I could maybe be redirecting towards things that are more kingdom oriented, you know? And then use what the Lord tells you to take the next right step into obedience towards generosity, towards better stewardship, in light of the fact that Jesus is coming back, and we will all have to give an account of how we stewarded what he gave us.
Well, and the number one way that you're going to, if you're going to manage your time, the first part of your time, if you just imagine that you're tithing your time to God. So what is 1/10 of a 24-hour day? Is that 240 minutes? That's 4 hours. So, you know, 4 hours of your day, just think, we have a hard time spending 5 minutes in the secret place, you know, or if we're really killing it, you know, maybe an hour, you know, and so what would it look like to begin to look if you're going to pie piece your day, I mean, everything is spiritual. But what would it look like if you're like, man, I'm going to tithe my time 4 hours a day, which means if I'm awake for 16 of those, that means 1/4 of the time I'm awake, I am focusing on kingdom activity. That'd be something to work toward.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. We might fulfill our benediction if we did that.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Well, church, hope this has been encouraging and equipping. We'll see you next week on the next episode of Afterthought.
See you later.